How's it going, coverkillernation? Time for another album review after taking a day off to, well, basically burn to death. But anyways, we're here to talk about another thing that's burning up, and that's thrash metal. They are having themselves another good year. Not to mention they had a great year last year, and it just seems like ever since the revivalists of thrash have kind of come through and become a little bit more mature as bands, not to mention with all of the elder thrash bands coming out of the woodwork and producing new albums, we have just had no shortage of fantastic thrash to talk about. We're here to talk about another one today that was just recently released. That's The Aftermath by Bay Area revival band Bonded by Blood. Now, Bonded by Blood has been around for a couple of years. They won a battle of the bands in order to get a recording contract. We all know the story. The story is fantastic because they beat out 250 different bands and were able to get the recording contract, and ever since then they have been able to release a couple of studio records, this being, I believe, their third. Now, the major change between this album and Exile to Earth is the departure of their previous vocalist and the incoming of another one. So how does that make a difference as far as the vocal duties are concerned? Now, obviously, in a band like this, a thrash metal band, it is not going to make a large amount of difference considering style is going to be the main thing that's going to be shifted. And there really isn't that much of a stylistic difference here, and that's because of the style of music and the style of thrash in which they play, which is a very aggressive style of thrash metal. This is one that is not going to be uber heavy on trying to cross you up with melody and try to blend in way too much. Instead, they stick to what they're good at. Now, the main difference is going to be in the fact that there was a little bit more of a ruggedness to their elder vocalist, and it's still present here, but it almost has more of a twinge of like, almost like infusing a little like suicidal tendencies or something in his voice there, which is kind of a cool little treat. And overall, as far as the two vocalists are concerned, they're about par for the course for me. I don't really have a preference between one or the other. I find each of them to be equally capable for the job. And either way, I really like their separate styles. So that's something that we're going to get out of the way right away. Now, as far as this record is concerned, of course, you have to consider what Bonded by Blood is all about. Bonded by Blood took their name from the Exodus debut record from the middle part of the 1980s. And of course, that debut record was something that did one thing for thrash that changed and revolutionized the genre forever, and that's the twin dueling guitar solos really becoming a huge tantamount thing that you heard in thrash metal. It's an idea that had been experimented and tweaked with before. However, this album brought it to the forefront. And with that said, Bonded by Blood, they're able to use a signature and just a guitar gunslinger style protocol in order to really capture the imagination of that old school era, as well as blending in the new school, the crossover element, in order to create a hybrid almost that just revitalizes thrash for a new generation. And also, it doesn't hurt that a couple of years ago they did a cover of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme song that gained massive and hardcore acclaim. Now, this is an album that I'm going to say a couple of things about. The first I'm going to say is that it's an extremely consistent record. The reason for that is because all the material definitely has a nice swagger to it. And I don't mean swag. No, I mean swagger. It carries itself very well. It carries itself with confidence. And whenever you're progressing through this record, you do not feel as though you have missed a step. Either that, or you do not feel as though you have lagged behind. Secondly, I just am continually impressed to listen to the maturity of these revitalization bands in the thrash metal department. You know, bands like Evil, or Municipal Waste, or Bonded by Blood, or Skeleton Witch, and things like that. You know, the bands that kind of had their inception near the first or the middle part of the 2000s and have really grown up before our eyes as reviewers. This is a band that has certainly grown up, matured, and evolved into a very clean and consistent band. And they've also, while they do have a lot of fans, they do have a loyal following, I really feel, considering bands like Skeleton Witch and Municipal Waste are like, they're dead set that they're definitely going to be showing up in my store. Bonded by Blood is still a question mark. They almost resemble Overkill. Overkill in the 1980s were they were just a huge act, and you know, they got a lot of attention and things like that, and they did appear in stores, so maybe that's not a fair assumption or a fair comparison. Maybe a Heathen, you know, maybe that's an even better assumption. I don't know. But one of these bands that almost seems like, unless they do something that is going to capture the minds and hearts of the mainstream metal fan, you know, the Pantera's adoring metal fan, that's, you know, that Pantera is the hardest metal that they're going to get into until they hear, you know, Bonded by Blood, for example, that they're really not going to get that sort of attention and that sort of deserved acclamation. You know, it's very strange, because this is a very consistent and a very good album. It's one that's able to blend forth a lot of things that these fans really look for. They have hard driving, you know, melodies that are going to be able to get you from point A to point B in a very rapid fire pace, but at the same time they can also slow it down. This is a band that's actually doing a lot more in the way of just evolving before our eyes on this record than many people will probably give them credit for. You know, there are a lot of songs here that are almost using a signature, another signature of thrash, which is having a song start off one way and then kind of taking a hard right turn into another direction. Basically shifting up the composition in order to keep it fresh, not to mention also to kind of put on display not only the technical aspects that a band is able to possess, but also to tell a story. These guys are becoming bona fide storytellers, and the stories are being told both lyrically, but also and mainly through their music. Love this record, mainly because I felt like I was, you know, right on pace with it. I felt that I did not miss a beat. I also felt like this is something that's going to be well done live. I think that the band has really found one hell of a stride, and I also feel like they're not resting on their laurels, so to speak. I feel like the best is still coming. So with that said, I think that this is an important evolutionary step for the band. The Aftermath definitely has that tone to it. And I really feel that now that they've gotten an album with their new singer and now a new bassist under their belts, the sky's the limit for these guys. So long as they're able to stay consistent, so long as they're able to continue to write and mold their music, and continue to experiment and tweak with it a little bit, continue to kind of go back to the annals of thrash and add in a new style, you know, a new style shift here and there, and maybe even create something of their own, I think this band is going to be just fine, not to mention they're going to continue to gain acclaim. Last thing I want to talk about is the Rage Against the Machine cover, Killing in the Name of. Some people may bash this because Zach De La Rocha just has such a signature charisma, not to mention an energy level that is very, very hard to eclipse. And that makes covering this song a daunting task in itself. Musically, it's good. Where I was the most worried was the energy of the vocals, really believing the message. I believed it with this band. I believed it with this cover. I liked it a lot. I had some fierce reservations going in, but those reservations were silenced by the time the song was over. Overall, 8.5 out of 10. I can't say this enough. This revitalization and this thrash that we've been getting over the past couple of years has just been awesome. It's been fantastic to watch something that was considered old become new again, and hear something even scarier potentially become better. It's crazy what evolution can do. That's why evolution is a mystery. I'll talk to you guys later.